remember I used to tell people what I wanted in my life, and a lot of people always told me to be very realistic. And I never understood this mindset. I never understood why people constantly projected or wanted to talk others out of pursuing a life that actually reflects their own potential. I want to talk about this topic because I think it is so important when you are honoring yourself and when you are pursuing a life that you consistently envision, you need to learn to take the opinions of other people with a grain of salt, meaning that you should only be taking advice from people who have successfully pursued something that you also see for yourself. That is the only time that someone's opinion earns credibility to you. That is how I've learned to approach my life. I have always naturally just wanted more for myself. And I feel like because I never hesitated to embody that version of myself, it easily triggers people, especially people who never gave themselves permission to go after more, to want more, to honestly just dream bigger in general. Something I've realized when it comes to embracing your own potential in life and pursuing a path in life that you may have never seen anyone else achieve before, it requires you to trust yourself on a very deep level, to believe in your own vision, and to really develop the confidence that it takes to be able to go after that. Something that has really helped me with this is developing the mindset that anytime someone tries to tell me something is unrealistic, unachievable, or not relatable, that is all the more reason to go after it. I've always used it as fuel and as motivation to really design a life that I've always dreamt about. And every single time that I approached any of my goals this way, I was always very successful at achieving it. I feel like I've always gotten many things that I've always wanted for myself. And it's not because I'm fearless or have the confidence to always go after it. I just always honored what I wanted and allowed myself to embrace it, regardless if I was going to fail at it or not. I have always wanted to be one of those people that is an inspiration. I want to be the example. I want to show other people how they should approach their life. And by being that version of myself, I have always had to approach my life with a different standard. I've had to understand that going after more comes with different side effects, meaning people are going to hate, people are going to judge, they're always going to have an opinion. And it is up to me to define whether or not that has credibility in my life. And I've only ever allowed myself to take advice from people who have possessed a life that I want as well. A lot of it is about learning to create these imaginary boundaries away from people who love to project, people who victimize themselves. I've never really agreed with the whole victim mentality because I personally believe that you can bounce back from anything in your life. It doesn't really matter what you've been through. It just matters how you use it. And that doesn't mean that experiences don't matter or we downplay things that we've gone through in our life, because I will say that I've been through some personal things throughout my experience that could have hindered my growth. I could have used it as an excuse to not get what I wanted, but that was all the more reason to become a better version of myself, to learn through things that I went through. And that's such an important mindset to adopt in your life. When you have gone through circumstances that are not necessarily ideal or just really hard experiences, you have to use that as your own self development, because if you don't, it will always be used in a negative aspect and it will always be an excuse. I think that it takes a lot of resilience to be a person that is willing to honor themselves and pursue a life that they envision for themselves, regardless of the circumstances or variables around them. Because we can always look at it in two different perspectives. We can use a million things to talk us out of what we want in our life, or we can just use it as a way to show up better for ourselves, to learn, to create better habits, to allow ourselves to embody a version of ourselves that is capable and has the confidence to build an extraordinary life. You need to learn to be the architect of your own life. It is up to you to design a life that is so fulfilling and so rewarding to you, and that requires a bolder version of yourself. You don't need to have it all figured out. None of us do. I don't even know what I'm doing half the time, but I just know that I want more. And I allow myself to have it, which means taking the first step, going after it, building up the courage to pursue a life that other people hate on or other people judge or people tell me that I cannot achieve it. I realize that other people's projections are just a reflection of where they are with themselves. And if I take it personally, then I am taking all of my power away to be able to design the life that I've always wanted. It's very rare to be one of those people that allows themselves to be wholeheartedly authentic and doesn't care what people think. And I really think it's a skill that you have to learn to develop. It's not that you just don't care what people think, you just learn to take it less seriously because you realize it doesn't define you. It doesn't define what you're able to achieve in your life. And if people constantly say that something is unrealistic, that is all the more reason to go after it because nothing is impossible, nothing is out of reach. We can absolutely create anything and everything that we want, and it all comes down to ourselves and our ability to give ourselves that permission to just envision more and essentially faking it till you make it. Doesn't mean that you approach your life in this way where you have no fears or that you don't always care what people think. That is a natural human response to want to prove something to these other people. But the more that you learn to trust and honor yourself in your own life, less that other people's opinions actually matter. Most people are literally miserable. They do not live in their potential. They talk themselves out of what they wanted in their life and they hate themselves for it. That is just something a lot of people are not willing to understand. The majority of the general public is very miserable because they do not live in their own potential. They do not live a life that reflects the boldest, most confident version of themselves. They are settling for something that is very complacent and is usually the opposite of what they ever wanted for themselves. That is something that will never change. There is always going to be people that do not believe in you, but that does not matter as long as you learn to support and believe in yourself. Having the support of other people around you is an illusion. That's why when people say, oh, this is unrealistic, you can't achieve that, this is impossible, that is literally just an opinion. It is only one perspective. It is not all of them. It is especially not true. It takes a special kind of person to be able to turn hate and criticism into fuel and motivation to better yourself and to create even better results in your life. I am currently sitting in my own apartment in my dream city in a high-rise building. This is something that I always put on my vision board, and I remember telling people this is what I wanted in my life. I remember specifically I had a conversation with a person where I told them that this is one of my goals in life, that this is something that I really wanted to achieve for myself. And they told me to be realistic and that I was never going to be able to achieve it because it wasn't meant for someone like me. And I think since I had that conversation, it really fueled something in me and it really sparked my ability to have a confidence in myself to be able to pursue bigger goals in my life. I realized that, okay, if this person thinks that it's unrealistic, do they just believe that about themselves or do they just not want me to really reach my own potential in life? I had to dive deeper on what that truly meant. And I think I was really offended in the moment. And instead of reacting, I had to sit back and be like, what do I believe is possible for myself? Am I allowing this person's fears to stop me from going after what I want in my life? That was a really huge turning point on stepping into my own potential in life and starting to give myself permission to really go after more, especially allowing myself to have the more that I really wanted. I started to really create a plan for my life. I started to really define what do I want for myself? What are the biggest goals that I have? And how can I start going after them? How can I start inspiring other people? Because it was never about proving myself to others. Although I will say, when people doubt you, it does make you want to kind of prove a point. And part of it is just proving that you can achieve it. But the other half is also proving to yourself that you are not willing to hold yourself back from a fulfilling life, and especially being able to have things that other people deem as unrealistic or unachievable. It was a huge confidence boost when I was able to achieve this for myself. The second that I got this apartment, my whole life changed, and especially the way that I saw myself change because I did not allow the opinions of other people or their projections to talk me out of what I was capable of achieving. It is my job to define the type of life that I will design for myself. Obviously, when you reach something like this, it's like, see, I can achieve it. And it's like you want to prove something to that person, just shove it in their face. But I also realize that a lot of the people who really doubt you are also people who see your potential and they don't want you to be great because that is a huge mirror for them. You are basically showing them that you trust yourself and that they don't trust themselves. And if you were able to achieve something like that, then what does that say about them? And a lot of people cannot handle that truth. They don't know how to deal with that reflection. If you are a person who wants more for your life, it is so important for you to adopt a level of confidence that shows that you believe in yourself and that you do not let fears win and that you are not willing to settle for anything that is not a reflection of what you see for yourself. Nothing is off limits. And once I started to create things that I had always wanted, it made me realize that none of this was unrealistic, just wasn't normalized. Those people didn't normalize it for themselves. They didn't expose themselves to more. Life is about being bold. It is about trusting and believing in yourself and understanding that if there are things that you see yourself having in life, but you don't yet have them, and you are trying to talk to people about it, you're trying to get advice, you're trying to allow others to validate you, none of that is going to work if you don't give yourself the permission to actually go after it. Maintaining your reactions to doubt and defining what that doubt will actually do for you will change your life. There is one version of you who reacts to situations like that, where someone tells you, you cannot achieve this, you are not capable, it is unrealistic, that is not for people like us. And then there's a version of you who can listen to someone saying that and realize, you know what? I don't care what this person says. I'm going to show them that it's possible. And I'm going to be the inspiration, the example for others that didn't necessarily have anyone that believed in them. Your dream life is on the other side of being the boldest, most confident, fearless, not giving a fuck version of yourself. That is what is required to build a life that is so much bigger than anything that you've ever seen before. I am on a journey of expanding my comfort zone, stepping into my own potential, and really defining what I am capable of building in my life. If that is something that you also see for yourself and you really want to become that version of yourself this year, then I will see you in the next video.